Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure and a privilege to be here now for a very special person, a very special conversation. We're about to listen to somebody whom I truly admire. And I'll tell you why I truly admire. When you look at politicians anywhere in the world, they quite often get a reputation that they like being in front of the cameras. They may not do too much, but they always like their, being in front of the cameras and taking credit. Bhupender Yadav ji is the exact opposite. You very rarely see him in the spotlight. You very rarely see him in front of the cameras or giving an interview. But anybody who knows anything about India and how India is functioning right now knows the influence, knows his capability, knows the role that he is playing in transforming India. And I have to say that I think not just India, but the world is in many ways lucky that he has given this particular portfolio: environment, climate change. We know that it is one of the most important issues in the world right now. And if there's one person who can navigate the complex discussions, the negotiations, the give and take to actually try and save the planet, well, I at least can't think of anybody better than Bhupender Yadav for that, which is why I was really delighted when he got this particular portfolio. Bhupender Yadav ji, can we welcome you on the stage? So, ladies and gentlemen, Bhupender Yadav, the Honorable Cabinet Minister for the Environment, Forest, Climate Change, Labour and Employment. But Bhupender ji, thank you so much for being here, sir. Can I make sure you've got the mic? Oh, you do that. Yeah. Let me start, sir, with the fact that obviously COP28 is here and there are going to be lots of conversations and discussions. What are you going to be telling everybody at COP?
This is the 28th COP. Sometimes we think that every COP is a final COP and coming with the final conclusion. But it's not to be happen. Because every year world meet together, think together about the future of the world. There is one shloka of Upanishad, because in India we are getting a wisdom from Upanishad. It says, Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karvavahi Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Let us we all come together, relish together, think together and work together for the prosperity and goodness of the world. That's our object. So here the different countries coming there, academia coming there, even this report on the basis of science is there, policy makers are there, business groups are there, civil society are there. Let us we all come together and we think that where the world is going with the impact of human being, what we will do. And on basis of the three major measures, the mitigation measures, adaptation measures, and along with what individually we can do. So that's a discussion point is there, and definitely in the last COP some decision has already been taken. So it's a platform when we will move forward. One thing I want to clear, because that's a always vision of our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. Even in this COP also, we assured that under the leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, India will also the part of solution, not to the part of problem. And that is the main stand and commitment of India.
Right. Well, sir, obviously the goal is a common goal. If the planet is saved, it is a common benefit for the entire planet. But when you look at the commitments that people have made at Paris, at COPs, to say this is what we will do, there's always a time to sort of check who's doing what. There'll be an audit on who's performing. And India's report card in this is actually rather good, the actual work that is being done. What are you going to be sharing on that? And how do you see the others also doing?
Paris Agreement was the milestone in the journey of this COP. And after Paris Agreement, every country declared their NDCs, National Determined Contribution. And India also declared its NDC. And here, what you are specifically asking me about what is the contribution of India. One thing we achieved under the leadership of our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji in last 9 years, that what India committed after the Paris Agreement in its first NDC, especially in two areas. First, the reduction of carbon emission intensity, and second, the dependency of India on renewable sources. And here, I am proudly say that under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, we are among the first country in G20 also who achieved its target 9 years before. That's a commitment and able leadership of India that we achieved.
So India's ahead of what the commitments are, but at a macro level, we are still falling short. So there is still reason to be concerned because as a planetary level, at the COP level, we're still not getting to where we would like to be right now.
You see, every country who is giving their national contribution. You know, the national communication which we are going to be filed in this COP also, our third national communication. The national communication prepared by the country on the basis of some points. First, the total capacity of that nation, their greenhouse emission, their mitigation effort, their adaptation effort, their research, initiative, policies, and all these things. We are also going to be submit our third national communication in this COP also. India is the country which is having a total land area of the world, 2.3% land area of the world. But we are having a population of 17%. You compare what is our lifestyle and what is our contribution to that. We have a 17% of population of the world and our carbon emission is 4 to 5%. If you counted the 17% population of developed countries, their carbon emission is 60%. So that is the contribution of India. Even our historical contribution is 5%. Our per capita consumption is less than 1/3 of the world average. That is the contribution of India. Apart from this thing, you will find the other thing also. Because of our development need, our energy resources and energy capacity is increasing. But if you compare to last 9 years, our per capita GDP emission is reduced. So what developmental model India produced under the leadership of Prime Minister, that economic growth with environmental care. That is the model which is India presented here in the world today.
Because quite often, people wonder, here's a country which is still an emerging country. India is not a rich country by any stretch of imagination right now. And as you correctly said, the per capita emissions of India are among the lowest
according
in the world.
To the GDP growth also.
According to GDP. So the per capita emissions are therefore so low that you could argue that India should be allowed to, but this is a change in philosophy now, that India is saying, though our per capita emissions are low, we will still try and control it and cap it because we're caring about it. We'll be trying to...
That's the reason we are enhancing our capacity also. Even you see in the last 9 years, our solar energy capacity increased 25 times. We are depending on our renewable resources are at 50 times. Our global carbon shrink is 1.97 billion. That is a recorded. We are also caring about, we are taking so much climate action also. After Paris, under the leadership of Prime Minister, India made a collaboration with France, the International Solar Alliance. India made the second climate action program, that is the CDRI, Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure. Then third is the leadership for industry transformation. Number 4, recently Prime Minister also announced in the G20 also, the International Global Fuel Alliance. Then the other, which is the unique for the purpose of saving the biodiversity also, India announced the Big Cat Alliance also. So India in the domestic level, we are doing it better compared to the other countries, and in the international level, we are also part of and taking an initiation for climate action program, which are very relevant and very appropriate for this point.
India has often had a position on common but differentiated responsibilities. which is essentially to say that the global north or the developed countries bear the responsibility for the vast amount of carbon which there is in the atmosphere right now. The global south and countries like India do not bear that historical responsibility. And therefore, India's position has been that therefore the global north and the developed countries should do more than their share of actually solving the problem right now. Because if they don't, they're taking up more and more of the carbon space. Is that continuing to be the message that you're putting forward?
I'm thinking in the different way that CBDR is a principle which is accepted by the world in the Paris Agreement also, because world is threatening by the 1.5 degree temperature threat is there, but that is not the only threat. After the Stockholm Convention, there are three major conventions. First is the UNFCCC, other two are also important. The second one is the UNCCD, because land degradation is also a big problem. And the third one is the biodiversity COP. That is also important. So we feel that we are contributing to this, all these three COP and all these three issues. That is most important. The second thing is CBDR principle. What is the CBDR principle is? I am again giving you an example. The 17% world developed country population per capita or emission is much high in the other world also. You know, I am giving the example that 17% is having a 60% carbon emission. But what about the 54 African countries? Their carbon emission is only 4%. When we talk about the climate change, we must talk about the climate justice also. To giving a dignified life to every person, every human being, that is also important. Every countries have right for their development, but their positive contribution to create this problem. That's the reason the NDCs are there. So India is the country which already achieved their NDCs target 9 years before. Even in the last COP, we enhance our NDCs. We are ready to contribute to them, but we are also committed to our country, and we are also committed for the poverty eradication of our country also. For that purpose of development need, definitely more energy is required. So our contribution is basis of our NDC on the principle of CBDRC.
But the question which I think has also therefore arisen at the G20 and India was also articulating is the question of climate finance. Now, whether India needs the money or doesn't need the money, or China needs the money or doesn't need the money, is a debatable issue. But if you're looking at, as you said, African countries or others in the global south, it is important for the reason of equity and also to make sure that climate action can be taken, that climate finance has to be taken care of. And that is certainly an area where presumably the developed world has a greater role to play.
You know, the climate finance, there is a specific thing. Even in the Paris Agreement, there is two groups, Annexure 1 and Annexure 2. Annexure 1 is the countries are the developed countries. India and China all coming in the Annexure 2. Even the Saudi and all the countries are Annexure 2. So that is already part of Annexure 1 and 2. Now what the developed countries promised earlier to provide $100 billion finance, that is not fulfilled today. So where the trust will come? Second, the definition of climate finance, which is not to be finalized. The third, even in 2024, the new quantifiable goal is also required for the purpose of future also. Even the last 2 year old report says that even for the further climate action, $5.3 trillion is required. Recently, the OECD report says that even in this year also, that pledge for the developed countries is still not fulfilled. So finance is required. Two things, finance and technology transfer. And to all the countries. India is also a vulnerable country. We are having a more than 7,000 square kilometers seashore land. And every year, because of the climate change, we are affected by the cyclone and all this thing. Sometimes we affected by the Tautke cyclone. We are about the Amphan also. Every year we faces that. Even the last year we saw a cyclone in the Gujarat area also. So we are also a vulnerable country. And these is the commitment which is already committed by the developed countries, and it is still not fulfilled.
The point which you were making about technological transfer and technological collaborations, And potentially international collaborations is really important because in a sense you could argue that industrialization and technology has led to this problem of too much carbon. Technology could potentially find solutions to it, but then the entire planet should work on it together, whether it is geoengineering, whether it is finding green hydrogen or better engines or move towards electrification. This is some of the areas presumably where international collaboration should be there, and again where the poorer countries or the less developed countries need to be given a helping hand.
Lead IT is like that. Even in the Glasgow also, the Honorable Prime Minister, along with the Australian Prime Minister and UK Prime Minister, establish a fund for the IRIS for the providing the help, finance and technology assistance to the small island countries. The CDRI is like that. The Leadership for Industry Transformation Coalition is like that. And that is very important. Technological transfer is very important. Even in this COP, the outcome of global stocktake is very important. We must ensure that these outcomes, which is coming by the GST in this COP, are not mitigation centric. As a country, we feel, as a worldwide, we feel that the mitigation, adaptation, loss and damages, and means of implementation. That is very important for developing countries, and developed countries must come forward and fulfill their pledge which they have already announced.
So when you said that there's a very clear change in the mindset, India is making it crystal clear that it wants to be part of the solution, not the problem, even though it does not bear historical responsibility for the crisis in a sense. Is it also helping you in communicating that? Because there seems to be a realization that as we move to cleaner energy, more renewable energy, more solar, more green hydrogen, this is actually good for India also. It's good for the Indian economy. We are spending so much money importing oil, foreign exchange importing oil. If we can actually tap solar, we can do things like that. It's good for the Indian economy. It's good for the planet, but it's also good for India. Is there that sense also?
For everybody, I think that's the reason India is making the International Solar Alliance Cooperation is there. India has become a leader to adopting a good adaptation practices also. Apart from that, the mitigation measures taken by the government and the adaptation measure basically belongs to the behavioral change of the society. The one also important thing, because what we are facing that the citizens of the developed countries' consumption is too much. So personal contribution is also important to meet out this fight. Because every day, with our every work, we are contributing for carbon emission and all these things. So our Prime Minister giving a call in the Glasgow also, that's a LiFE, environment-friendly lifestyle. Technological improvement is good, technological innovation is good, but personal behavior is also important. That's the reason Prime Minister gave a call to the mission LiFE, environment-friendly lifestyle, and that is very much important. Last year, the United Nations General Secretary inaugurated the Mission LiFE program in India, and we hope that it will become a movement where every individual person contribute their contribution to fight against the climate change fight.
And the message of LiFE is something that's obviously important for the developed world, but you're saying every citizen of the planet should now start thinking about a sustainable lifestyle.
Because even when you read the Paris Agreement framework also, they emphasizing the role, cultural values, the traditions of the societies who live in this planet with the nature-friendly atmosphere. So these traditions which we are getting from our forefathers always not bad. So environment-friendly habit must be inculcated in our behavior. We must have sometimes I say we must have a civil sense. If we are having a civil sense, that we must having the environmental sense also. We must teach our children that civic sense is important rather to live on this planet, that environmental sense is also. So what we consume, not unnecessary consumption. And that's the theory of India, and that's the personal behavior movement started by our Prime Minister as a mission LiFE.
Right. Sir, before we end here, just wanted to ask you, what are you hoping for? What are the messages that you hope you will leave COP28 with?
First, we are waiting the outcome of the global stock take. Already, I say that that is a very important aspect. Second, India believes that development of the renewable energy is one of the best available solution for future of the world also. And third, COP28 should adopt the framework of the global goal of adaptation, because that is also important, and we must increase the funds for the global adaptation practices. I think these three things is important. Apart from that, the earlier decision taken in the Glasgow and Sharm el-Sheikh also, especially in the Glasgow, it was announced Glasgow to Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation document, that is also not completed. The loss and damages fund, which a decision was taken in the last COP, some negotiation has also started. Third thing, India being a leader, this time we in our domestic union budget, we are giving a green budget, and India also started the mechanism of carbon credit market. Glasgow, we accepted the Article 6, but not much action taken on the Article 6 in future carbon credit market also. So that will be also discussed. So we hope that GST, loss and damages, Article 6, adaptation, more focus on renewable energy, these are the issues which must be discussed in this COP, and we must give to our next generation cleaner and greener earth. For that purpose, we are coming here, meet together, sit together, think together.
All right. Bhupender Yadav, thank you so much and all the best. Let's hope we are able to achieve all of that at COP28.
Thank you.
The planet really needs it. Thank you so much, sir. And now we have a very special session coming up, so I'm going to invite on the stage Professor Manoj Radha, who is of course the founder and chair of the India Global Forum, and also Naveen Rao, Senior Vice President of the Rockefeller Foundation, for a special session and report on climate change and health and exploring the Global South's leadership. So.